So I've consistently attributed my quote unquote downfall to lack of will, a lack of will in general, but the way that it manifests is, resistance, reluctance to change, to get better. And whilst that may be true, it wasn't as if I wasn't doing anything, and by not doing anything, the default was getting worse. Because actually, there was a lot of will involved. My ultimate motivation was to justify my own failure and embarrassment and disappointment. And in doing so, I would need to get worse. And that took some effort. Because to change, you will change inevitably. That is a consequence of time's march. And the direction in which you do so is not necessarily decided by fate, and it's not necessarily decided by you either. And I decided to get worse. I identified all of the most negative aspects of my life, you know, the addiction, self destructive behavior, and, insisted that that was the only constant in my life. That I was an inveterate stoic slab, an unmovable object. And that it might be a million hot years before you are made to live again, but it feels like nothing to wait. But that's not true. It does feel like very much something to wait. It feels like an unquenchable scratching thirst at the back of your throat. And so the point is that nobody, and certainly not me, can sit in stasis and be content with that. Well, it can't happen regardless. There's no such thing as a stable equilibrium. There might be a local one, but in general, we there's gotta be some rolling, okay? And you know, easier to roll downhill, but you make that choice. And so now I feel like I'm so much better, right? And I'm so much better than I've ever been before, and there is so much more to lose, and there's so much farther down to fall. And that doesn't scare me at all. It doesn't scare me now that there's an entire lifetime of me having to do this over and over and over again. It does scare me that perhaps the decisions I've made in the past are going to seriously affect my life now. That the consequences I'm about to face are inevitable. For the first time, they're actually going to be real. And it doesn't scare me that those consequences are not actually inevitable, such that I can actually do something to make sure that I don't fail my exams. I know I'm not gonna fail, but like to do better than not fail, right? There's something I can do, and I am doing it, and I'm doing so much better. But if I hadn't spent so long actively trying to get worse, yeah, I wouldn't have to get better now. I wouldn't have to work so hard to get okay. I would just get better. Um Yeah, and it doesn't scare me that that's not inevitable because I know that there's work I can do. And I never wanted anything to be up to me, which is why I denied that it was up to me. I denied that that was, I claimed that anything happening to me couldn't be because of me because I had a lack of will. I wasn't an active contributor to my life. I wasn't and actively interacting with my environment. I was, you know, simply existing, but that's not true. Even sessile organisms must interact. Not just to live, but not just to live or to survive, but just to exist. And if there's one sure thing, is that you're alive, okay? And you know that thing that's like, if your only goal in life is death, then you are guaranteed success. Girl, okay, right? But you are not guaranteed that after a million hot years, you will ever get to experience this again, and you are certainly not guaranteed that you will remember the lessons that you learned. You won't remember that it's your second chance. This is my second chance. And I dug myself this hole, which all the more proves that I can dig myself out of it. And even if I can't dig myself all the way up by the time May, June comes around, at least I won't be at the bottom. I'm not at the bottom now, and I will never be again. It used to be that a life of complete failure was better than a life of mediocrity. And that death is better than a life of complete failure. Or perhaps the life of complete failure is only better because it's a road closer to death. It teeters on the edge. But it's not just unappealing to me now, it just seems absurd. It's not an option. And it's not embarrassing to try. What's truly inevitable is that I'm gonna become a fucking scientist. You know, even if I don't do well this year, if I just keep getting better, the signs will follow. And I have to trust that. And I know that. Actually, I know that. I can feel it.